Hey, what's up guys? This is Nick from Nick Expose. On this episode, we're going to be talking about the Leica or the Minolta CL. It's also called the Leitz Minolta CL, which is actually the model that I have. Other versions have the red dot for Leica. It says Leica CL. Other versions just say Minolta CL, but all three are the same camera. And I'm going to talk about this. I've had it for 3 or 4 months now and just kind of want to share some of my thoughts about it, some of my general observations about it, some of the things that I love about it, some of the things that I don't love about it, and why I've decided to actually sell it and remove it from my workflow altogether. But if you're looking for a full-length review, this isn't going to be that. This is going to be a shorter, more concise, more opinionated review. But at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you where you can go to find a full-length, like very detailed review on this camera that I think is well worth checking out as well. So to let you know, I've been shooting this with the 50mm Summicron version 5. That's really the only lens that I've used on here. I did use the Summicron 35mm for a little bit, and I'm going to kind of discuss that here in a second because it's not actually built to use that camera or to use that lens. So I'll talk about kind of my experience with that and some of the little hacks and stuff that I've done to be able to use the 35 on there. But we could start off there talking about the different lenses that it does take. So when you look through the viewfinder, there's actually the 40mm frame lines and a 50mm frame lines. And then it also has a built-in 90mm frame line that pops up anytime that you attach a 90mm lens. So Leica actually designed a 90mm f4 LMR Leica C lens for the CL, and I use this on my M2. I use this as just a 90mm, but it was originally designed for this platform, and I actually didn't know that it took 90mm frames until a little while ago when I actually put the 90mm on there and was surprised to see that the 90mm frame lines had popped up. So I thought about putting some rolls through it and testing out the 90 on here, but a majority of my experience has been with the 50mm attached here. I want to continue talking about the viewfinder because that's kind of one of my biggest hurdles of getting over. There's actually 2, well, maybe 3 giant hurdles that I've had with this camera, and I want to talk about those. So looking through the viewfinder, you actually, like I said, you have the 40mm and the 50mm frame lines at all times, but then you also have your shutter speeds all along the top, and you have an indicator marker that goes as you change the shutter speed, the indicator marker will move with it and show you where you're at, and I actually do like that. But then you also have on the right side of the viewfinder, you have your meter. So it does have a built-in meter. I don't meter. I do the Sunny 16 with all my work, so I actually didn't use that feature on here, but it is available, and it is great to have such a small, compact Leica, body to be able to have a meter in it and to be able to really run and gun with a 50mm, with a 40mm, whatever it might be. And I will say that this is an extremely, extremely small body. I believe, don't quote me on this, but I do believe that this is the smallest interchangeable lens rangefinder body ever made. One of the things that I do like about it is it's extremely intuitive. Here's your shutter speed dial, and it's a vertical dial, but when you're actually looking into the viewfinder, when you change your shutter speeds, the way that you push the dial is actually the way that it moves within the viewfinder. So being able to change your shutter speeds on the go is extremely easy and extremely intuitive because it's right here, right next to your shutter button. And I absolutely love that about this camera. With that being said, with them putting that in the viewfinder, with them putting the internal light meter reading in the viewfinder, and with them having a constant fixed 40mm and 50mm frame line in there, those 2 frame lines are so close together that it actually ends up cluttering up the viewfinder quite a bit. I would have preferred if this body would have came out as strictly a 50mm viewfinder or a 50 and 90 or something like that. I just think that the 40mm and the 50mm are just too close together to where when I pull up, my mind just kind of has this split second that it has to decide, oh, which one was I using? And when I use the M2, that's my daily shooter, right? And I pull that up to my eye, it only gives me legitimately the only thing that's in the viewfinder is the frame lines that I'm shooting with and the focusing patch. So when I have a 50mm on here, it's only the 50mm frame lines. The M2 has frame lines for the 35, the 50, and the 90, and I'm actually gonna make a video about this camera here in the next couple of weeks. But as my daily shooter, I love being able to pull up and there's absolutely no distractions within the viewfinder. There's no distractions between the thing that I've perceived to shoot and the shooting experience. And for me, that's a big part of my workflow, is being able to remove as many distractions and as many decisions as possible, and just allowing my brain to have such a clear, concise view of what it is that I'm trying to capture. So I absolutely love the M2 for that, and that's really a shortcoming as far as my concern with this CL, is just the clutter as soon as I pull it up here. Another thing I will say is when you do have a strap, and I'll talk about the way that the strap system works on it. When you do have a strap, oftentimes if have this on, you pull it up to your eye and sometimes it'll fall down in front of here, sometimes it'll pop back behind the viewfinder. So I have found that multiple times I have to kind of pull off and recompose the strap. And it's just these little moments and these seconds of decision and these seconds of delay that can allow me to miss a scene and can allow me to miss the shot. And I don't know, for me, that's a big, big, big deal breaker. Another big quirk that I found that just was irritating, especially going from using an M2 to this guy. And the reason why I got this camera in the first place, I could talk about that right now, is I wanted a reliable M-body or M-mount body as a backup for if my M2, like it did a little while back, took a tumble and I had to send it out to get repaired. I wanted to be able to have an M-mount body to be able to use while it's off in repair or anything like that. So, or being able to have a second body to be able to put like a slower film speed or maybe a color film stock or a different type of film through while the other camera is held up by another film. So I was really hoping that this would be a good secondary body, not the main shooter, but something that would kind of be a seamless transition between the two. And it just didn't do that. So one of the reasons why was, if you hear, and actually the shutter on this is extremely quiet. I absolutely love the shutter with it. That's the shutter. I mean, that was 1/250th of a second. I don't know if this picks it up, but that's all it is. I mean, Leicas are quiet in general, but this one is just beautifully, beautifully quiet. But if you notice here, when I fire the shutter, the advance frame or the advance lever has to go all the way over and up, and then it clicks back. So the big thing on that's not an issue. I mean, you can get used to that motion, but the big thing is if you don't go all the way, with the M2, well, it does hold here, but if it comes back, with the M2, you can actually almost like double stroke it to where you can do 2 small strokes and it still advances. But with this one, you actually have to go all the way up front and get that last little bit of click. So oftentimes if I'm shooting a scene quick and if I'm working the scene and that moment of, oh, it's still not there. It's just these little bit of hiccups that kind of add to just the extended period of time between me actually being able to see something and shoot something, like I've been talking about this whole time. So for me, that whole idea of having to go all the way forward, which that's kind of an awkwardly far distance for it to travel. I mean, it has to go not only all the way around the edge, but kind of in front of the camera. For me, that's just kind of a deal breaker, because if I'm shooting here, sometimes that extra little bit is just kind of a weird motion of my hand. And I don't know, maybe I'm the only one that experiences that, but that is one of the things that's kind of a quirk. The other thing is the strap system is on the side. So with the strap system on the side, it works well to carry it by your side, but when you're actually shooting, it kind of makes this kind of mess of strap that just ends up hanging off. And I do wrap my strap around my wrist, but then when I do that, it kind of bunches up in here, and it's just kind of a hassle to strap manage, you know? But I did find that one of the things that I was ended up doing, just because it's not really necessarily good for having hanging from your neck to be able to shoot at the same time, I did find that I would kind of carry the camera like this. I had almost like a Minolta CL grip, and it was kind of a special grip for the camera to where my finger would rest on the focusing tab here, and as I was walking, I would get my zone focus in kind of close to where I wanted it to be. So by the time I pulled the camera up to my eye, the focus was kind of in the range versus you know, focusing with this side. So I did find that after a while of shooting with it and kind of carrying it as a daily shooter for a little bit, I was kind of carrying it like this, and it actually did become quite comfortable. And I do kind of enjoy that fact of being able to carry it in one hand, being able to focus with one finger, and then being able to pull up to my eye and get the scene on however I needed to adjust it. So I would say that that's almost a plus, but it's also kind of a minus in having to deal with the whole strap system on the side. Another thing with the strap is when you take the bottom off and the bottom comes off just like this, the bottom plate or the backing plate or the whole bottom back of it comes off and it's still attached by the strap. So I mean, that's nice because you can kind of let it down by your side and load like that, but then it's also kind of quirky when you go back to load it back up because now you have to pull the strap through. And when I'm loading on the street and I'm kind of running and gunning, I kind of find that I have to pull it out with one hand while I'm trying to line this up, and then I'll pull it and put it in. And it's just, again, it's just these fractions of a second that it adds on that if you're a slower shooter, it probably won't bother you. If you're a slower shooter, you'd probably even like the system and like moving forward with the whole kind of meditative format of this camera, because it really does cause you to slow down in a lot of different ways. But typically when I'm out in a big city like New York or Chicago or even in Grand Rapids, sometimes when it's busy, there's a lot going on and I'm trying to capture so much that I'm really trying to save as many precious moments as I possibly can. So I will say, despite all of my negatives and my complaints about the camera, it is a joy to use. It does feel, to a certain extent, like a Leica. I mean, there's definitely a weight difference, right? When I hold the full brass body of the M2 in my hand and I hold the CL body, there is a weight difference. So I do know that I don't have my M2 in my hand, right? There is a big difference, but at the same time, the form factor definitely feels like a Leica when I have it in my hand and when I'm carrying it around. So it feels comfortable, and like I said, the intuitiveness of the shutter dial up here, of being able to switch on the go and being able to pull through, and even with a lot of instances with the lenses, I could actually see the aperture number that I'm at, and I could kind of gauge close enough to where I'm going to be within maybe a half a stop. So I do think that they really did design this camera extremely well. I do think that there's a lot of intuitiveness built into the camera, but just for my style of being able to have something that's so simple, and I know that you can't get something like this and expect to have an M2. That's not necessarily what I was looking for, but I did want something that was a little bit more seamless, being able to jump between the two, especially if I'm shooting both on the same day. If I have maybe color in this one and in black and white in the M2, I'd like there to not be as much of a gap between the shooting experience between one and the other. Like I said, this isn't a full-length review, but who is this camera for? You know, I do think that this camera is a great starter camera for anybody that's trying to get into the M-mount body. Having an M-mount in such a tiny body and then being able to invest in amazing glass is a beautiful, beautiful system. And also having the light meter built in is a huge plus. It's something you don't get with the M2, the M3, or the M4. For someone who's shot Leica for quite some time, someone who's been working off of an M2 or an M3 or any of the other M bodies, jumping over to this system might be a little bit quirky to get used to, just because it is a different user experience. It is a different camera in general, but at the same time, you might also find that there is some similarities in that it's not as giant of a jump as, let's say, going over to a SLR or anything like that. Real quick, I do want to talk about using the 35mm on here. So as I was looking through the viewfinder, you could kind of see the difference between the 50mm and the 40mm, and understanding that a 35mm is just outside of those frame lines. I threw the 35 Summicron on here and started guessing my composition, and just kind of added just a fraction of an inch, like around the 40mm frame lines all around. It's not quite the entire viewfinder, but if you kind of split the rest of the viewfinder in half, I found that I was able to actually compose pretty well and pretty accurate with the 35mm, and especially for any kind of landscape scenes or any kind of wider scenarios that you would normally shoot with the 35mm, being able to guess the edges of the frame was much easier than I anticipated. So I would say that being able to use a 35mm on here is more than feasible, and you actually still have some extra space around the edges of the 35mm frame to be able to watch things walk in and really kind of guess that whole thing. So if you are used to the 35mm and the 50 combination, you can make it work with this. It's gonna be a little bit quirky, but I think after you begin to learn the camera and you begin to learn the frame lines on the camera, I think you could really guess it with some great accuracy. So at the end of this video, I'm going to put up some images that I've shot with the camera with HP5, maybe some Kentwood shots, both with the 50mm and some with the 35mm, and I'll mark those down and you kind of see these will not be cropped. It will be right where my edges lined up, so you can see if anything starts to creep into the edges that I didn't realize were going to or anything like that. But also go over and check out Analog Insights. So Max over there, he's a good buddy of mine. He actually put up a video earlier this week. I was already planning on making this video for this because I'm actually selling this and it's actually sold, so I'm actually packaging this up right after this video to be able to ship out to the new owner. But Max made a video about this earlier this week, and or at least he posted it up, and it's an extremely in-depth review, just as all of his reviews. If you haven't seen Max's channel, you need to go check it out because he has some of the most amazing and insightful reviews that kind of gives me a little bit more gear lust than I need to have. But he really puts these reviews together and goes into the history, he talks a little bit about the 90mm system that they come up with for this camera, and just a lot more of the in-depth detail that you might have been looking for in this review. But I really just kind of wanted to share my experience with it and the reasons why I enjoy it, but at the same time why I let it go out of my grips to be able to send it off to someone else who will probably get more use out of it. So I'm gonna link to his channel up top here, but then also down below, so be sure to go check that out. And if you're new to the channel, go check out some of the other videos. I have tons of creative process, tons of just community-based videos, and just so much information that if you're looking to grow your photography, if you're looking to grow your art and your love for film, I think you're really gonna find on the channel. So I'd love to have you like and subscribe down below. Also leave your comments. Have you ever shot this? Have you ever wanted to shoot this? What are your thoughts after seeing this review? And I'd love to hear those as well. So we're gonna jump over to the sample images, and I will see you guys on the next episode. Until then, go out and shoot more film, and I want to try this one out. Go and push yourself 2 stops. What do you guys think of that? Is it too corny? I don't know. Peace.